Blessing, 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 blessing. Hello, 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 hello. This ain't no ordinary worship. This ain't no ordinary song. The Lord I serve is more than ordinary. I'm gonna praise him with my song. This ain't no ordinary. Hey Jude, don't hey Jude. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, it's 5 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock. It is 5 o'clock. It is time for the rest of the read of the book. It is time for the rest of the read of the book. I tell you, this readathon, I'm on a readathon. I'm on a readathon. I'm on a readathon. Reading this book. Reading this book. This is what we do. This is who I am. I am Mama Pam, a.k.a. Pamela Dobson, and I read every day, 7 minutes, so you don't have to read. Today we're reading this book, 7-Minute Read. See Sev7nread.com. You can visit my website at 7minuteread.com and find out all about who I am and what I do. Praise God. Praise God. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all for joining. Come on, come on, come on. We got to finish this read, and then I go into my 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time reading of the Bible. So I've been reading all day. I've been reading all day. You love my broadcast. Thanks, Jude. Well, see, you make a song come out of me when you come on, because I see your name. I see your title. Hey, Jude. So I like that. I like that title. God bless you, sweetie. I'm following you. All of you on here, I thank each and every one of you who's here. Thank each and every one of you who comes back. Wait a minute, did I just see Don't Steal My Bacon? Oh, man, where'd he go? Where'd he go? Oh, my, Don't Steal My Bacon was here and he left. Where'd you go? I saw him. I like Don't Steal My Bacon. Like when he comes on. Oh, gosh. Praise God. Okay, we're getting ready to get into the read. Ooh. I read and then because I got to come back at 7 o'clock for my 7 p.m. read. And so we should be able to finish this book right now. We're just about finish it. I may have to do something. We'll see. Let's get on into it. Let's get into it and see. There you go. Don't Steal My Bacon. So Don't Steal My Bacon is the robot thing. That's what Don't Steal My Bacon is, but that's okay. I don't care who it is. I like Don't Steal My Bacon. Okay, chapter 12, the demagnification of ego. The demagnification of ego. Let me see, is my husband going this way? He's supposed to be listening. Hold on, I'll be right back. He's supposed to be listening. Baby, you listening? Huh? Okay. So I need my husband. That's my support. Don't nobody else be with me. My husband be with me. See, we talking about the black-white dynamics. Ain't that what we talking about? We talking about how they destroyed the black man, how they took everything from him, and then they took his black woman and made her against him. Well, I'm for my black man. You understand me? I'm for each and every one of my husband and each and every one of my children and my black grandchildren and everybody else's black children. I'm for y'all too if y'all ain't black, but I'm talking about black folks right now. See, people are tripping and people say, white lives matter. All lives matter. We're not talking about all lives. We're talking about ours right now. We're not talking about all lives. All lives ain't getting lynched and hung from trees. All lives were not mutilated like our black lives were. Like we read in this book. We're reading in this book. This stuff ain't never happened to nobody in the world but us black folks here in America. All right, so let's get into it. Chapter 12, the demagnification of ego. Throughout the process of the undoing of a slave mentality, the once physical slave must come to realize the importance of harmony in relationships. A harmony that can only be brought about through the balancing of ego. Now, when we speak of balanced ego, we're including the individual's natural tendency to represent itself, which in psychoanalysis is the part of the psyche that distinguishes the developed identity experiences, the external through the senses, and subconsciously controls the impulses of the individual. Based on the conditioning of the black ego during the slave making process, the natures of the black man and black woman were perverted from their proper use and natural expression, so much to the degree that the feminine and masculine energies of the black conscious ego today seeks expression from competition by feeding on sources outside of its original internal self. This is the problem in many of today's black male-female relationships that have overlapped from the age-old divide and manipulate method mentioned in the Willie Lynch letter. So in order to gain a proper perspective on this subject matter, let us reflect that during the slave making process, every intention was to weaken, distort, and destroy the ego, self-estimation, and natural expectations of the black slaves' inherent ability to create, and shape reality for itself. While the Euro slave makers were breaking the black ego, they were creating false illusions of self-importance within certain individual slaves based on the black slaves' duties. Or dare I say, color of their skin. Wow. All right, for example, when 292 years, even 292 years from the indoctrination of the principle documented in the Willie Lynch letter, many of our people still base their self-importance and success on their close affiliation with their service to their corporate masters. From this position, the weakened ego begins to connect to itself importance based on status, competition, and the devalues of those who don't have versus those that do. As mentioned in the making of a slave document, once the slave's mind can contact a substantial historical base, the mind will and has the tendency to correct and recorrect itself. So this law works equally with the damaged ego in that under attack or underdeveloped. It automatically asserts itself in order to compensate for any of its own shortcomings. Hey, daughter Gloria, I see you, baby. I see you. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. So in the case of the African brought to the Americans during the physical bondage process, families were fragmented and torn apart. The destruction of African historical evidence only compounded the problem of the disempowered black male and the symbolically asserted black female during the era of affirmative action through the civil rights movement. Therefore, in balancing the magnified ego that now aids in the breakdown of black families, we must also realize that the ego in black men and black women must not only have connections with spirituality, but is also synonymous with history. In other words, this is where the connection of a people's physical history, their biological accomplishments, and visual cultural customs are brought into the picture, connecting them with their mental history. Only then can the self be repaired, expressed, and communicated to the outside world in a harmonious manner. Another important element that the skilled makers of slaves realized is the difference between mental history, which are the human developmental arts, and sciences such as meditation, yoga's prayer technique, spirituality, and clean dieting. These sciences contain the mathematical basis for the manifestation of our ancient historical accomplishment that physically records itself on the pages of history. Once black men and black women can be educated in the mathematical mental sciences practice to develop the inner man, along with clearing the amnesia of our recorded physical past, and then connecting these two aspects of our existence, can we properly channel the natural energies of the misdirected slave ego? Praise God. God bless you, Sister McClarty Yolanda. God bless you. God bless you. Thanks for joining. We're reading this book. We're reading this book, Breaking the Willie Lynch Curse. Breaking the Curse of Willie Lynch. Let us modernize the concept of demagnetizing the damaged ego and bring it directly up to the present moment and see how the music industry and its artists are unconsciously feeding the ego of the black masses in a manner that creates a falsified form of self-esteem for the privileged, boastful few to those they view as subject. While at the same time, these artists brag about material gain and are still subject and powerless to the companies owned by the same people who owned and conditioned their foreparents generations before. These artists have more than enough money to acquire legitimate power, legitimate control, and legitimate distribution of radio airways in the most influential area of the public, the media. This powerlessness is largely due to the misdirecting of their egos, mistaking luxury and fame, which are the elusive symbols of power, contradicting the reality currently existing, defined as the damaged slave ego, which in most cases has not been properly developed in themselves. So today, the ego of the once physical slave is fed constantly through the media's entertainment and advertising giants through the overstimulation and focus on, you guessed it, focus on sex. Not much difference from controlling breeding methods of the black man and black woman during the days of plantation life. Black men were considered valuable to the ruling class based on his production of numerous litters of black babies for the purpose of slave economics. Not being required or even allowed to partake in the slightest bit of responsibility, he was rewarded by the slave maker with the classification title stud. Today, these type of money-making black males still carry the physical load, are symbolically privileged, and called professional athletes. 291 years from the date on the Willie Lynch document, black men are still drafted and traded from institution to institution and from teen plantation to teen plantation, whether they choose to or not. Gotta play, make that money. Get on out there, boy, and play. They shooting steroids, whatever. You got to go play. So the egotistical activity of black celebrities are mimicked by those entertained on the other side of the big screen, differing only from the influential people in the spotlight in that they really don't have the financial means to support the weight of the over-magnified ego like the celebrities. Black men and women are unconsciously practicing in the Euro corporate media's economic strategy to create the insecurity of not having and psychologically not being established in the world as one of those possessing less value. So if we look back into the words of the Making of a Slave document in the earlier chapters in this book, we will come to the conclusion that the manipulation of a destroyed black ego for at least 3 centuries was only the preliminary groundwork for today's modern economy. For this economy has only survived based upon the foundation of black labor, black energy, and black fear. These 3 essentials combined with the manipulation of a low-esteemed ego only furthers the division between black man and black woman. The potency of Willie Lynch's age-old method further intensifies black disunity when fed and magnified based on the concept and action of continued material consumption. Chapter 13, The End of Envy and Black Slave Classism. From the realm of the magnified ego comes the byproduct of envy and classism. This happens when our egos begin to attribute to themselves value based on material visibilities. while at the same time comparing themselves to the spirit of conceit to those whose egos have not been established before the view of the physical eye. When the ego of those whose material accomplishments or personal level of public appeal does not compete with the next person's material success, then the culture becomes contaminated with the disease of envy and classism. From a position of government and authority, these human shortcomings can be created and stimulated for the purpose of control, especially when the creation of falsified differences are given value and made noticeable to the outward seeing eye. And nearly 300 years of Euro conditioning and anti-self socializing combined with Black people's overindulgence in materialism, two elements surface and prevail. One, being being distinguished as a paid labor pool of people who are addicted to consumption based on a fear of frozen ego, and the other being an apparently secure ethnic class of people who are the beneficiaries of cycled out dollars based on Black summer addiction to recreational goods more so than progressive needs. On the surface, mass consumption of material products just sounds like day-to-day business, simply because that's what the physical eye sees. Lying beneath the surface are the elements of surprise, resulting in two separate economic classes. One class obtains the symbols of wealth, power, and influence. The other economic class is properly educated, functional, and engrossed in the reality of true power. The haves and those who appear to have is a result of the illusions mentioned in the excerpts from other parts of the slave document. Akin to the insecure egos on both sides of the class equation is envy, a spirit disease that subliminally manifests outwardly through human form in an antagonistic function, working against the grain of next person's accomplishments. In reference to relationships, it is the ego's left-sided expression to equalize or compensate for class differences, whether the differences are imposed from an outside source, physically visible, or imagined. As Black men and Black women, we must scientifically understand the duality of classism and envy from within the framework of our own homes. The offspring produced from the seeds of division is subtle, yet an unconscious power struggle that often takes place between the male and the female. Struggles for the next person's energy are common in relationships, but due to slave conditioning applied on the African brought to the Western world, severely complicates the situation. Competition for energy through the manipulation of emotions for acquiring attention is common in human relationships in general, but produces division in the end. Silent, passive, aggressive attempts for influence slowly begin to boil over into the emotional, quarrelsome communications between the ego-starved individuals. The dilemma is subliminally present within each person. Now you have a fight on your hands because all along the emotional waters were being boiled by the ego to see which locomotive was going to lead by proving that it can blow off the most steam. Without the influence of deliberate outside forces, these normal circumstances can be changed for the better through normal counseling. The creative purpose of the planetary astrological influences that shapes the individual's characteristics while they are being fashioned in the womb. Astroscience should be used as a tool for self-diagnosis and not to permanently fix or attribute to one's character a negative trait that needs to be adjusted. To do so would be to paralyze the development process in the individual. In breaking the curse of Willie Lynch, the planetary astrosciences should never be ignored when in the process of healing, building a relationship, or when analyzing the spiritual makeup of oneself. For it is true that every individual will and has the inherent ability to excel further than every other human being in some field of human endeavor based on their special God-given talent. The mathematical and astro sciences can, if used properly, will aid each person who uses them to discover their talents, life path, and personal lessons. When individuals have a complete knowledge of self, the ego's energies are constructively directed in a proper manner. Then that their individual talents and characteristics blossom, manifesting their naturally distinguishing state of growth belonging only to themselves. In this state, Black men and Black women can begin to express the love developed in ourselves for our community abroad. Only after every individual in the Black community does the self-analysis system check and treats their self of the conditions produced by the Willie Lynch epidemic can we achieve the fruits of freedom, of true freedom. Chapter 14, Empowering Black Relationships. By knowing the nature, circumstances, and slave-making methods that laid the basis for Black male-female relationships during the North American slavery experience, can Black America as a collective begin to uproot the foundation of our division. Such a process would fall under the self-developmental arts. These arts would clear our minds of Eurocentric influences and at the same time would recalculate the damage senses of each individual's very being. To magnify the perception of this idea by exemplifying the process of meditation on a nationwide level, where Black people would psychologically, educationally, and culturally detach from feeding off of the product of our division for at least 1 week. 1 week. No television, no radio, no entertainment or sport and play for that 1 week. This week of nationwide meditation and dialogue would include the Black family only. Why the isolation? Because during the practice of silent stillness comes the correct answers and universal guidance. In contrast, how can you communicate in a room cluttered with noise equal to 1,000 people talking at one time? It's almost impossible to relate clearly under such circumstances, while at the same time Black people are using the antagonistic dogma of our former slave masters as a foundation for our relationships with one another. So this meditative method is also inclusive of the deliberate separation of Western ideology as opposed to the acceptance of an Eastern Afrocentric value system. A criterion inclusive of the very people for whom by nature these practices were designed to sustain and advance. In other words, Black men and Black women who have undergone over 400 years of foreign forced indoctrination must discontinue going to the same source that made us sick, as if this source would yield the proper medicine for our illness. Poison on top of poison equals more poison, which is exactly what the Willie Lynch letter taught when it said that after 1 year would become self-refueling among the indoctrinated Negro slaves. Some Black men and women in the attendance have stood at the test of time in their relationships, and therefore may not see the relevance of the idea of a Black nation in meditation. One might think that their family is successful and that there is a mutual harmony amongst its functioning members. But family, at this point, takes on another turn and responsibility, extending to the larger community. Almost a duplicate of a business franchise system or a multi-level marketing network where other successfully functioning components organize and begin to empower through numbers, expansive action, and building momentum collectively in their desired direction. Before such an empowering ideal can be manifested, the total reassessment of the Black approach to validating legitimate relationships that recognize the security and control of the balance of power concerning the individuals involved. Power is an issue of security in every type of relationship and is of a more serious concern when the subject of marriage is being considered. Today, many marriages have become reduced to the sole idea of economic security, when nearly 40 years ago the union was justified as a moral issue. A time now exists where black men who would commit to marriage are afraid because of a state of economic castration, where it becomes unbearably painful to go through the drama of divorce court, especially when children are conceived. And on the other end, the black female, in over 70% of the cases, are forced to become a single parent, relying on whatever assistance can be gained from laws designed to protect and secure her. Black men and women must both reflect that law in nature is designed to regulate the lower characteristics in the human being. In brief, the children of chattel slaves must indeed master the laws of nature that will override laws of Western man. For example, if the African brought to the North America had been and is still subject to a Western moral standard and has lost control of the available faculties to govern himself morally, what has to be understood? First is that the law of nature is designed to empower, based on applying the principles and disciplines within the framework of a more higher universal power. Man-made laws are derived from his chosen belief system. What is the present thought process supporting the laws that we as black men and black women use to guide and govern our attitudes about the institution of marriage? Furthermore, are these original beliefs producing laws that work for the betterment or detriment of black unification? If not, we must be moral enough to develop a healthy trust between men and women in the black community, a moral code that is strong enough to break the influence of the civil laws surrounding marriage and control of the black people today. Remember how we were trained to relate to one another through a breeding process in the fields of the plantation? First of all, why should marriage between two people ever become a three-way contract? Uh-oh. They saying sort of kind of things like I said. Okay, we're going to have to come back and do another one after I do this. I'm going to do a minute read up here. So what we are witnessing is a state organization controlled and operated family management system, which stems from early North American slave economics. Today, the average American citizen is affected by state-controlled marriage contracts designed to capitalize on and foster broken marriages, creating a multi-billion-dollar divorce industry. A government a government monopolized family law industry cannot function profitably without divorce mediation through legalized state authorization. This whole process is morally contradicting. Marriage is a sacred act through which people swear by God that they will remain in the relationship for better or for worse. But at the same time, before a state-appointed judge mediating the act, we live in an era where the church is supposed to be legally separated from the state. Based on the methodology of Willie Lynch, these laws do not empower the men in the economic outcome in divorce, which means that they are crafted to indirectly disempower the black woman. So based on statistics, the average male deciding to marry faces a 50% chance of divorcing within 8 years. Chances are that most of his assets will be lost and will be forced compulsively by the state in a non-negotiable manner to pay at least 1/3 of his take-home salary if there are children to support. Now, for the average black male, this is merely a modern reintroduction into physical slavery. Through the government extracting his income or working for next to nothing in jail due to insufficient payments of child support in order to survive day to day, these laws are enforced as a one-size-fits-all, which only creates major money problems simply due to the reality that individuals' income and living expenses vary in strength in comparison of one person to another. To empower the black family through strength should not be disproportion favoring one side or the other, because if so, there is no real strength and solidarity with the family members when there is no balance in the equation. Marriage contracts should and can be designed privately by the two individuals involved. Private marriage contracts can be drawn up between each parties consenting to all terms and clearly providing a complete disclosure of assets sealed and approved by a notary public. If not, the contract is possibly subject to be overthrown later. Marriage contracts must be honored in the courts even if the standard marriage license method is replaced by an alternative method. Contracts of this nature have not only empowered both parties during a possible dissolution of marriage, but have brought a better understanding of the terms of their expectations of one another. A process that teaches the practice of compromise and negotiation before entering into a long-term commitment. These types of marriage contracts, are essential if Black men and women are to acquire enough power to gravitate toward the influence of our own system of relating to each other without the influence of our oppressors' children. Okay, let's see, I got 7:14. That's about 10 more minutes. Chapter 15, Reversing Spiritual Homosexuality and Black Male Economic Improvement. Well, this is interesting. I ain't read this for y'all. I'm reading this with y'all. Reversing Spiritual Homosexuality and Black Male Economic Impotency. So throughout history, empires like America, ancient Rome, Greece, and Babylon have always used the same method of dictatorship. That common thread that they all share is that they were only successful to the extent of their ability to demaculate the subjective male aspect of the conquered population. As students of history, we must observe certain guidelines in order to be successful. The first rule of observation is to be mindful of is that history best qualifies and rewards its researchers. For example, Bible history gives us example in the parable of Moses and Pharaoh, where the oppressive authorities sent out systematic orders instructing the military officials to kill all boy babies. The slaughter of the boy babies was then and now is a form of population control. Shoot down all these black folks in the street, get rid of them, and start all over again. Because they're getting out of hand. They're getting wisdom, they're getting knowledge, they're learning stuff, y'all. And this from the book of Montpam. I'm observing as I'm reading this book. Okay. The Pharaoh within the era of Moses said, "Come, let us deal wisely with them. At least they multiply. Join on to an army of ours and come against us." Back in Moses' day. Okay? Now, how was Willie Lynch of the North American method of mind control any different from her parent countries from which she and her people originated? The difference is that America is more technically advanced and possesses greater military manpower. Well then, how much more uniquely different must the men of this present day byproduct of modern day slave masters be if he is to break the curse of servitude? In earlier chapters, we mentioned that the only difference between the Negro slave during pre-emancipation and post-physical slavery was that today's modern Negro has fancy transportation, is allowed to be more mobile, and is free to choose their own plantation, and is comfortable existing as such in comparison to the Negro slave of yesterday. The answer to the second question is relatively the black man's advantage thanks to time and the struggles of the many freedom fighters who've led us up to this moment. We got the young people out there taking us to another level. Even as I speak, they're out there protesting. Ooh, this book is so on time. This book was written 13 years ago. The advantage is that there are no physical chains. The main restraints are ignorance and fear. Trauma imposed through centuries of unjust violence that has scarred the black man and black woman on a deep spiritual level. Over time, the children of slaves have evolved to progress in areas before not imagined, but definitely not unnoticed by the offspring of former holders of black slaves. Today, many black men and black women in this country have failed in that we have forgotten two things. Number one, that we are the product of a white investment, and that investments as large as the one that we were made a part of are generally residual or what is commonly classified as long-term investments. The second factor of our era is not realizing that the Negro emancipated by the hands of his oppressor was, in fact, not functioning in that present state as he would have if left intact with his original nature. What comes to mind when defining man in his original state? Today, as defined by the average man through his economics, but in nature, is his ability to be creative through the usefulness of his will to be self-productive. Spiritual homosexuality is applied in its relation to the demaculated black male slave. Refers to his unnatural state of dependency and lack of economic productivity, not only of the system's programs and policies of his oppressors, but to the female component of his culture. If we are living in the so-called age of independent women, where does the concept of a dependent man come from? Who supports this concept and why? What are the long-term internal consequences and their effects on the black family? And what civilized society can maintain itself under such circumstances? The entire organized world can see that the natural order of male-female in 80% of black families in North America are as awkward as a breached birth. These circumstances occur only when people of African origin conform to the norms and ideologies of the Western white world, an ideal system that by nature sets the tone for the destabilizing and downfall of black families. There must be a specific type of influence education that stimulates spirit in black men, causing them to control their own reality in the areas of civilized industry, such as manufacturing, product distribution, marketing, engineering, agriculture, and the total control of the political scene in the black community. In relationships, black men must connect with God within and make sure not ignore their intuitive vision, which is more broader than mere material achievement. Black males in their youth instinctively know that there is something backwards in the training methods that they have received in the educational system. The traditional training that the disempowered single parent female often puts her faith in is the same system that she was molded by during the physical slavery. Black females receive certain rights over the black male slave under those set conditions that has shaped her perceptions, her attitudes, and a controlled mold of authority treatment toward the male counterpart of her race. My race, the black race. In order for black men in relationships to reverse this internal male-female conflict requires very astute understanding of the Willie Lynch program. Development of skill in handling the self-sabotaging female mind that has been Euro-synthesized. The first aspect to a solution here involves mastering the English language, understanding the folly in Western psychology and its application to the spiritual nature of African thought. Second, which is equally important, is communicating without argument, which is obviously a sign of a subliminal power struggle. Remember that argument is a form of control loss, either from within the individual, provoking confrontation, or their ability to direct the energy of their partner. As men, never engage in argument with your black female. This lowers your magnetic field's frequency, which automatically dulls your ability to attract the female in a non-compulsive manner. Don't be scared to lose what you think you have. You are the sun, and she is the moon. And as you create space to avoid confrontation, the male vibration escalates like the sun's gravity, while the moon female emotional state softens to the warmth of your radial energies, your knowledge, and your divine guidance. Remember that beyond the principles in the Willie Lynch indoctrination are eternal natural laws working to reconnect our natural tendencies. One such law is the law of like attracts like. Every person in your history of your personal relationships are but a gauge of your own personal growth. In other words, you are what you attract, which means that neither black man or black woman is at direct fault. But at the same time, we must be responsible enough to admit that the person we are involved with is only a reflection of our present state of development. As black men, you must see your reality clearly and understand that by nature, even though the average black female may never admit that they are subject to whoever is in power. She is in her state of unconscious sleep, not knowing why she thinks the way that she thinks today, submits to the structure of the white male. For example, her Eurosynthetic independence posture produces men that are followers living in a dependent state of inactivity. Black men must take an economic power move in all of the industries stated above. For example, when looking at the hip hop music industry, created and pioneered by black men without judgment based on our personal opinion, look at their wealthy example. Even in a mass state of negativity, the hardcore street artists have attracted the attentive ear of the entire black generation. Respect of female youth to the point where they are expressing themselves in a sexually undignifying manner and created a multi-billion-dollar clothing industry. These men, negative or positive, on the right path with the right idea, and they have the right intention. Freedom is the underlying principle. Let's work to evolve the moral of black media because they are also in need of breaking the curse of Willie Lynch. Chapter 16, Recognize and Gain. Now, the final prerequisite to bringing anything into the light is to be able to discover the true nature of that thing or person. This aspect of discovery is of great need in black relationships. Before going any further, let's ask ourselves what is the natural intent of gain? And secondly, who in the relationship is more than likely to gravitate toward initiating the gain? First of all, to recognize means to admit knowledge of the fact, being certain of the identification of a person as being known to one. In defining the word gain, it is characterized as a scene pursued in order to plot diversion, an act of unwillingness to take one's place in natural order, and to manipulate competitively. In the psychological realm, to gain means to go against or contest nature, to deceive one's very self with one's own intelligence. In street terms, to psych yourself out. Since we are dealing with the reality of Willie Lynch's generational curse on black life in North America, we must admit openly and honestly to ourselves the truth of this matter at every turn. In doing so, we will not unknowingly run a game on ourselves. At this point, a basic understanding of slave-making methodology should be very clear. We can all agree that the reversal of roles in nature only warps orderly family structure. This truth also applies to the entire race, to the same extent as being a people who lack total self-reliance, which in itself is in contradiction of depending on another people to provide for us our employment, our education, our food, our clothing, and our shelter. Not one black man or woman in America or the enslaved world over can escape the reality of this truth. Now, how does the previous apply to recognizing gain on a personal level? Getting us to admit the truth on a broader level by not being so direct allows us to look at self with constructive criticism. Male and female relationships are governed by universal laws that were set forth in divine creation to protect the entire human species. The woman is the second self of man, his feminine reflection, his subtle, weaker, softer half, and in biblical terms, his helpmeet. Now, every human being at some point in their lives has experienced the reality of being lied to by someone playing a game with some aspect of their life. Now, let's bring this point to the forefront because some men play games on women And women play games on men. In the sports arena, most of the times, its object is to keep the ball in your possession or side of the court as much or many times as possible. And in most cases, the ball is always moving or is the object subject to being controlled. In this example, the term ball shall be replaced with and symbolized with energy, which can be termed as will. It seems that the ball in any sport is the center focus of the rivaling competitors. So in many relationships today, our conscious will and our energy are, like the ball, an object of focus and control. To reach an answer to the second question at the beginning of the chapter, who is more likely to initiate the game? It is the person in the relationship who carries more of the feminine qualities. Even though tradition would like us to always attribute this action to the woman, it is not always the case. The male half of the human species carries the X plus Y chromosome. Miss Whitey, God bless you, sweetie, God bless you. So based on the astrological sciences, certain signs are defined as either feminine or masculine. Therefore, it is not uncommon for one to be observant of masculine traits in women. Notice that men or women are more feminine when possessing signs such as Taurus, Cancer, Virgo, Scorpio, Capricorn, Pisces, and are more masculine when possessing characteristics Gemini, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, and Aquarius. Now, the Libra is both masculine and feminine. He can cook, barbecue, wash clothes, because I got a Libra, and handle his business. Oh, gosh. Another cosmic difference takes place involving the Pisces, because the male of this sign carries more feminine traits and the female carries more masculine traits. So we brought this subject into the discussion in order to gain clarity on unraveling the confusion propagated by this slave-making technique, since our goal is to bring understanding by showing the effect of these elements on human nature. Observe that both feminine and masculine energies that subside as a duality in male nature can be easily dissected in their relativity to games. There are three things in life that everyone desires. These three things, being a part of the human psyche, automatically spill over into our daily relationships. But due to Willie Lynch's mind-enslaving techniques, these three desires are magnified more largely in black male-female relationships. And these three tendencies are recognition, control, and security. With a little practice and simple observation, you will notice that one of the three common tendencies in human nature predominate the personality of the people you come in contact with. You'll be able to see her angle within the first 30 seconds of conversation. The three are interwoven, meaning that a person seeking security will seek control to the extent of his or her insecurity. Secondly, a person who wants control will seek recognition to the extent that they emotionally feel they lack respect. Under normal observation, this is phrased as seeking attention or competing for attention. It is the female aspect of the ego that is more inclined to seek domination under oppressive or unjust circumstances. Since the female is representative of the emotional half of man, not necessarily male, it is the first to suffer being subject to domination, abuse, and subordination in any relationship. So under these circumstances, female instinct normally seeks recognition or control to obtain security. In black male-female relationships, the difficulty of a remedy involves complete acknowledgement of historical facts on Willie Lynch's American partaking of Roman methods of controlling the African mind. The original African concept involves an honest admission of the role of man and woman in proper balance, putting the man in the leading position in his home. Black men need to take into strong consideration three questions when choosing a helpmate. Number one, does she love you for you? Number two, does she put her needs before yours? And number 3, does she inspire you to seek your creator? Does she encourage you to seek God? I do. The female must ask these same questions to her emotional female self, as well as the masculine rational aspect of her psychological being. For women, answering these questions to themselves, it serves as an exercise of mastering the feminine emotional element. If you have all 3 of these questions answered yes as a black male, you're more than likely in a harmonious relationship already and have enough peace of mind to produce a prosperous family. Your woman has more than likely developed stronger faith, security, and pride in knowing that she is successful in being who she is and not necessarily what she can become. Amen? Praise God. In conclusion, I've been reading for almost, it wasn't supposed to be this long. But in conclusion, as we mentioned in the beginning of the writing, this book dealt with the economic collapse of America. I made an attempt at an approach somewhat unorthodox in that I focused on the historical mental conditioning of the black slave. The present American capitalistic economy was successful because of centuries of free black labor. Now, as a result of the training the vast majority of black men and women received on the plantation during American slavery, black men and women are being physically freed, still cooperate by converting 100% of our energy and resources back into the hands of those who held power from black people, white society. From studying the Willie Lynch document and other slave master writings on the same topic, I noticed that the system of slavery was successful based on control, therefore creating divisions mainly between the male and the female of the black race. Class, education, material acquisitions, age, and shade are all illusions within the illusion forged by the Euro-Gentile system of mind control. For this purpose, Breaking the Curse of Willie Lynch was written to explain in detail the psychology behind the idea of the conditioning process and prove that 85% of the black population are unconsciously unaware that their actions are still rooted in yesterday's slavery. Secondly, my attempt was to stress the importance of the mental history that black people have as well as our biological accomplishments and to distinguish between the 2. One is the recognition of initiative memory, which in African spirituality is called ancestry. My intention was to share with you in depth the level of detrimental attachment to an economic system that for obvious reasons is on its way out. Today, you guys, this book was written 13 years ago, and today it's on its way out. Black folks ain't having it no more. White folks ain't having it no more. And help to stimulate the black conscience to a state of overall cooperation in order that we may liberate ourselves from almost 500 years of spiritual violence and then free ourselves in an economic manner. A base in strong economics will only become a reality once black people are able to boast of a healthy family unit. May the Lord add a blessing to me, the reader of this powerful. Everybody in the world should have a copy of this book, especially in America. Everybody in America should have a copy of this book. It will open up the eyes of understanding. It sure have opened up mine. I understand a whole lot of stuff now, a whole lot of stuff I didn't understand before I read the book. And I still love everybody's body. But we as a race, we as black people need to learn to start building our own, getting our own, coming back to our own. Black men need to be with their black woman. Black women need to be with their black man. Now, if you already done got mixed and intertwined with other races, ain't nothing you can do about that. I don't guess. But anyway, we ain't here to tell you about that. I'll be back at 7 o'clock with my read. I'm tired. I'm hungry. But I accomplished what God asked me to do. In this season, he said, you need to read this book. I don't know who it's blessing. It blesses somebody. If it bless one body, it bless my body. Then it's all good. All right? God bless everybody. I am Mama Pam, a.k.a. Pamela Dobson. And I do read every day. I just read, if you are so led to donate to me. Because I do all this for free. But if you want to bless me, it's okay. God won't be mad at you, and I won't either. You can donate to paypal.me/Pamela Dobson, paypal.me/Pamela Dobson, or Cash App $ Mama Pam 23. Cash App $ Mama Pam 23. All right, I will be back. I will be back. After I go try to find me something to eat. Well, my husband in there, he done cooked. I got the best husband in the world. He encourages me, and I encourage him. He loves to cook. He loves barbecue. I try to give him I try to make sure he have everything he need to barbecue. Baby, buy what you need to do what you like to do. He be home. He ain't running the streets. He be right here with me, making me fat, cooking food. I eat it. He cook it, and we just as happy as we can be. Two little roly-poly peoples together, growing in life together. A black couple. Well, as black as we can be, because we all mixed up too. Bye, y'all. I will see you all this evening on Live Me. God bless. God bless. God bless everybody on Instagram. God bless all my people over here on YouTube, Periscope, and Facebook. All right. God bless.